Fucks up internet. So the GM has drowned his players in too many side quests, and all the players gave up on life. So sessions, fucking cancel.
No, wait, Josh, you cursed too early. We're gonna get demonetized.
YouTube can lick my grundle. I do not care, and no one will stop me.
Try.
Look, maybe in the future we'll pay someone to fucking edit the beepies in.
Yeah, we have one. His name's Brett.
Yeah, but we don't pay him. So
we should just start paying.
we need the old Batman 60s like into the Brett cave.
Isaiah, if we paid him to edit out the amount of times I cursed, that would just be Brett's life. He would have no time left anymore.
Yeah, but at least he'd be paid for it.
It takes I curse too much. Anyway,
Brett,
of
I'll
this
pay
is
you
relevant.
one crisp
I don't know
high
why
five.
Isaiah brought the fucking bullshit up. Hey, look, there we go again. Anyway, Matt is here.
Hi, I'm here.
Isaiah is here.
Was good.
Sam is not here.
Again. But he's dying this time.
Yeah, he's sick or something. Anyway.
Said he got Nurgle's Rot, which is pretty bad. Nurgle's Rot's probably the worst.
It's also
the
very
worst
vague.
of the Plague Fathers. Huh?
It's also very vague. I don't know what he actually means about it. But anyway. Damn, you derailed me.
Big oof.
So, Josh, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, I know what we're talking about, Matt. I'm just trying to remember how I was trying to segue into it. But since we're just saying fucking meh, I don't have a better title and or term for this, so I'm going to keep using the term that I don't like because it's the best one I have. What we're talking about is balancing and or juggling, dealing with, whatever phrase you want to use, really. Main story, main narrative, and side narratives and or side stories. Again, I don't like this name. I'm hoping as we talk about this, I'll think of a better phrase for it.
Main
idea
arc
versus character arcs?
Huh?
Plot arcs versus character arcs?
No. That was not an invitation for us to workshop this. We're just going to go and we'll figure it out. But point
Main
being,
quest versus side quest.
Yeah, main quest versus side quest is the very basic premise of it. I just don't like that phrase because it makes the side quest sound devalued, which is not the point.
Yeah.
You're what?
Somewhere. Cardell is screaming.
I mean, I have a feeling that a lot of this is just going to be story time. So everybody sit down grab your tea and get ready for some story time. Cause I
hope you guys like some popcorn and
I have a feeling this is going to turn into us talking about a lot of, events from our games. Anyway, to preface where the impetus for this idea came from, I very recently, in our campaign, as Isaiah will know, and Sam would know if he wasn't dead and or dying, had some events occurred that were very much not planned, or I shouldn't say not planned. Well, they weren't planned prior. I thought about
the
them.
Pizza store?
Huh?
The pizza store?
No, not the pizza store. Although that was also not planned, but my players just wouldn't let that one go. So, and by players, I mean Sam. Sam wouldn't let that one go. But no, some events have occurred in the campaign, which, was not the sort of thing that I jotted down in my notes way ahead of time, right? I've been thinking about them only very recently, last, a couple of weeks or whatever. And there was a part of me that while the events were going on, I was kind of like, or not while they were going on, but right before they were about to happen. And I was thinking, oh, maybe I'm wasting time on something pointless. Maybe I shouldn't do these because, they're not really serving any sort of, it's not really serving any sort of grand narrative focus or whatever. And it wasn't necessarily or isn't necessarily going to tie back to anything super big or whatever. So I was thinking maybe this is dumb and I'm wasting time. But I went through with it, and then I kind of thought to myself, how do you decide? You know, you come across a scenario when you're GMing. This is basically not relevant to player side at all. It's an entirely GM controlled thing, more or less. It's like, how do you decide? You're GMing and your players are doing whatever your kind of main story thing is, and then they come across something, or one of your players wants to do something that's a sidetrack from the primary thing, and you have to weigh as a GM, is this worth spending time on? You know, a session or a couple of sessions, or maybe a rather long amount of sessions sometimes, depending on the scenario. It's like, how do you value one versus the other? How do you weigh the scales? You know what I'm getting at? It's making sense.
Yeah, you're sort of pacing.
Combination of
yes,
pacing
it ties into pacing, although I'm not thinking about it in terms of pacing necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple ways you can, like, if you have a side thing and you don't believe it's like, you know, super important, like a side quest or whatever, there's a couple things you could either you could shorten it, which I've done multiple times where I over prepped and over planned something that was supposed to be a small adventure, and then looking back at it and going, yeah, I need to cut some content. Like, fuck me, I wrote way too much. B, you just make it a part of the main quest accidentally. Oh no.
I mean,
or C, you have a tie. Yeah, you have a tie to one of the players.
Yeah, I can personally attest for the last two of those, because that's literally something that I've done 3 times now to make the side stuff not feel like side stuff. Yeah. I was like, oh well, I'll just give the players a reason to give a shit about it, and that way they'll think like, oh, this is just the stuff we got to do now.
I'm not necessarily, I don't mind the side stuff feeling like side story, you know, content. It's just a case of, is it a juicy enough orange to bother squeezing, you know? Is there enough lime juice in there for my margarita, or is this a dry, withered, sad lime?
I mean, if it's fun for you, like running it, if you're not having fun, maybe the players are having fun and enjoying it. Those are like the two main factors. If it feels, if you like as a DM, you can kind of feel when like the players are not engaged with whatever's going on, and that's when it's time to like either change it up a bit. You know, it's like, oh, orcs attack or whatever. And this is like one of the weird things when it comes to like the whole like main story / player story or side stories or whatever the fuck you want to say, arcs. It does very much involve the players, and if your players are like, you wrote out this cool like adventure for the players and they're not involved with it, this isn't a novel. Your players aren't here to play in your novel. They're here to play a game, and you're here as a DM to run said game, and don't forget, you're a player too, so you can have fun, just don't make it a novel. And it's hard. I get the balance act with that. I get that. It is very much, it can be a pain in the dick.
Well, interestingly, I don't... Well, two things. One, when I'm talking about this, I'm kind of operating under the premise that your players are invested and or interested in your primary arc already. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm sort of operating in the fact that they have buy-in on the main thing already. Because if you don't have buy-in on the main thing, you're in like, now we're in a different territory of like, oh, my players are not interested in my primary arc. What do I do? How could I potentially move this into some other places they may be interested in? That's kind of a different scenario. So I'm operating under the assumption they are invested in the main dish I'm giving them. But every once in a while, you want some side dishes. Also, now that I'm thinking about it, I think the best way to phrase it is balancing primary arcs versus branching arcs. Yeah. I think that's probably a better way to put it, because that doesn't make one sound more important than the other, because that's what I'm trying to avoid. I don't want it to seem like one is more important than the other. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is, because Matt, you were like, oh, well, if your players are having fun, this is gonna sound maybe a little people, I don't know.
Well, I said both. I said you and your players.
Yeah. Are people having it? Whatever. But this may sound a little masochistic. I don't know. I don't value them in that way a lot of the time. When I'm talking about deciding whether to go down a sort of branching path scenario or not, I'm valuing it in like, is it worth it? Is there a payoff that's worth it in the sense of you're going to kind of get something out of it? I'm not thinking about it of like, will it be fun to go beat up the lizard men? I don't really care if it's fun to beat up the lizard men if there's no reason to. You know, I need a little bit of a payoff. And that's more how I look at it. And the reasoning, just to justify my point so I don't sound like a psycho.
Yeah.
The reasoning is because I'm sort of assuming, I'm basically assuming when I come up with the idea that the idea is going to be fun by default and that that's not in question. Now, obviously you're wrong sometimes, but that's how I operate. When I'm thinking about it, when I'm coming up with it, I'm assuming this will be fun and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're wrong, yeah, you deal with that later. But I always start with the assumption that it will be. And I think that just comes from the fact of I'm not going to bother even thinking about a branching arc if I'm not thinking it's going to be fun or interesting from the get-go. Like, I won't even put brain power to it. So assuming that first step, now we're on the page of, okay, I think it'll be interesting. How do I balance it versus our main story arc? And then, you know, how do we play with the dials? And yes, having it tie back into the main story arc is a very good cheat for sure. And a good way to get that payoff.
Yeah, it's the one I rely on the most. Like, it's gotten to the point where some of the like primary arc shit can't be accomplished, or it can't be accomplished as easily without it. So like, you know, a good example is like one of the players, what's a good one? Oh, you know, Paladin's whole thing at the beginning of the game was he was like, oh, my dad's this legendary bandit, I gotta go find him. That's like my personal motivation. And then with the whole like bandit uprising thing going on, people were like, well, we need somebody that we can rally behind, right? Like we're outnumbered for sure, but we have better equipment, and that might not help us though. So we need something to keep morale up. And then the players were like, well, my dad's like a hero, like to the common folk, right? Like he stole from all the organizations and like, you know, he paid himself a lot, but he also gave back to the community. So if we go like find him and bring him back, he can sort of act as our flagship when we like do the big like charge at Gondor, you know what I mean? And it wasn't like necessary to complete the thing they needed to do, but because they did it and they brought him back and they found out that his brother was working for the bad guys and they got him to turn traitor, so he was helping them and feeding them info. Like it all sort of manifested as making the final conflict easier, you know?
Yeah. That is, that's a way to do it. Certainly, is having any sort of branching arcs become like ammunition for your main arc narrative. The only thing I think of there where it could potentially get ugly is if you do that a lot, you get into that kind of weird spot where the verisimilitude breaks down, because it feels like every human being, or every character in this world is always driving back into this main thing that we're doing all the time. So if you overdo it, it'll get weird, you know, or could get weird, where it's like, oh, I don't know, what's like a weird example. Oh, we found this one merchant guy way out here in the wasteland. And as it just so happens, he's that other guy's brother that you were just talking to. And you're like, bro, we're 50 miles from that other dude. And you're like, yeah, but they're siblings. And you're like,
Crazy.
how the fuck?
Yeah.
So there's always that danger. But if you're cognizant of that potential problem, then you're probably fine.
I actually have had that happen twice now, where like
You tied it back a little too much.
No. So like what I've done is like I very purposely put characters' siblings across the map, and it's like someone's like, oh yeah, me and my brother don't talk much anymore, and the player's like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And they'll go somewhere else, and it's like, oh yeah, this guy sent us, and they're like, oh, I don't talk to that fucking guy anymore, and they're like, oh, is this the guy?
Yeah, I mean, if you do it on purpose, though, it doesn't feel the same, because you probably thought about it more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the scenario where you're trying to think of on the fly a way to make the side quest tie back into your main narrative.
Yeah.
And then you go, they happen to be related. And you're like, oh, this is awkward.
You're doing, Click Clacks the ogre, he's actually the long lost brother of Clack Clicks the other ogre.
Yeah. Those are the scenarios where it can get like kind of wonky.
I know you mentioned like your thing, like you specifically want like a payoff, right? For some sort of side quest or branching.
Yeah, it has to kind of matter.
You could vet like the players being like, well, what do the players need at this time? Do they need money? Maybe they just want to fucking go after the lizard folk in their cave swamp for the gold they have. Are they looking for lore? Maybe they go to Wang Shitong's like underground library and fuck with him for a bit. Like,
what a reference.
I was just thinking that, like, wow, what nice.
What a throwback.
Yeah. So like, I mean, it's gauge the players, see what they're missing. Obviously, if it's like, DM, you know what really helped me out? A Vorpal sword. And it's like, all right, Jethro, settle down there. But like, if it's like, yeah. But it's like, if we need like money for my Itzeria, then it's like, okay, well, gold is a very simple like thing. Or maybe they don't find gold. Maybe they find, fucking a deed to a giant property of land or some shit. Like, I don't know. You can always like vet the players, see what they want, what they're after, and make it somewhat reasonable to your game.
No, yeah, and that kind of payoff is totally a thing I've done before. And if you're doing it in that sense, where the whole point, the point of the side quest is just sort of, we need to get a little bump of something, or we need some more XP and stuff like that, yeah, that's fine. And that definitely counts as payoff. But sometimes for me at least, I don't know if you guys agree with this or not. I don't know. I mean, I guess, do either of you, I don't know. I guess I should say, do either of you care about there being a payoff to like a side, a branching side arc scenario? Like, does it need to have a payoff of some nature, big or small, or do you not care?
That depends on what kind of branching path, like side quest thing. Is it like a character arc thing? Then the payout might not be
I'm talking
gold
anything.
or magic item, but it'll be like character development.
Yeah.
If it's a side quest where it's like, all right, we want to make this potion and the alchemist gave us a list and now we have to go out and find it. Oh, we're doing the main quest to go to the Church of Schmargenrog to, steal the gem orb. On the way, there's a forest where all these fucking ingredients are at, so we'll hit 2 birds with 1 stone. Like, it's like,
well, the payoff, I mean, that's what I'm saying. The payoff can be big or small. It can be pretty much anything. I'm just saying, do you think about that? Is that a relevant issue? Because you could hypothetically do you could basically give your players a side quest that serves literally 0 purpose, if you wanted. Like, you could just be like, I'm bored of doing the main narrative, let's branch off into something else just for funsies. And then that doesn't really serve a purpose. You're just doing it for funsies.
Yeah.
For me, it's if the players want, if like, so the Itzeria thing, right? That has no real payoff. But if they're really passionate about it, I'll just be like, all right, fuck it, why not? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Let's see where this stupidity goes.
But I know in do you value it personally though? Like, is it important for you?
But it's important to them, so I'll humor it, No.
I'm saying, is the idea of a branching arc has to have a payoff, is that something you consider when you are proposing them to the group, when you're putting them in front of them, in front of the players?
I would say yes, because I personally don't like the idea of doing all that work for nothing.
Even if it's a very small payout.
Yeah, like it would annoy me as a player if we went to, we fought Zordak, the Eternal Red Dragon, and then after we beat him, or after we've like abandoned the plot to go fight him, he had no treasure, he had no crazy magic elemental stone. You just, you killed the dragon, congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here's some XP though. That's your reward. There's the XP for it. It's like, yeah, but that's not.
Okay, so XP not enough.
No.
I mean, I could use an example from the 3-year game where, like, Tomophos just came out, and I wanted the players to fight Oblexes, like the little like ooze aberrant that could like take over, like they mimic people's bodies, and a lot of people went missing in town, so they went to this tavern. Turns out the whole tavern was made up of one Oblex. Turns out there was a basement where a mind flare was making Oblexes, and the only real payout was that it foreshadowed like, oh, there's mind flares and shit in the Underdark that are trying to fuck with the surface. That was it. Other than that, the players were like, ooh, cool, we get to fight new monsters. And I think they looted them.
So
I don't even remember what the.
So you're saying that was a case of
was
no real payoff for you?
No real pay. Well, for me, it was, ooh, new monsters I get to throw out my players.
Okay.
Just trying out new monsters. There wasn't like.
Yeah,
and
so
the players, it was like.
You don't really
like,
care. You're okay with it being kind of like whatever, just for funsies.
I guess because it didn't take that. It literally took 2 sessions. It was a 2-session thing.
Yeah, it's 8 hours.
Yeah, but still 2 sessions out of a 3-year fucking campaign. It was a side quest. The players got some sort of, I don't remember what the reward was, and it did foreshadow eventually when they went into the Underdark a little bit. But other than that, it was mostly like, yeah, we get to fight some monsters. All right.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So on your end of the table, you're like, you're okay just doing random do nonsense.
Well, no, because the payout was the small foreshadowing. That's what I'm saying. Like even if it's very minute, even if it's so tiny, there is some sort of payout. You could do like if you're doing a giant camp, like fucking again, I don't recommend doing a 3-year game. But if you're doing a big, long campaign and having side quests where it's just like, yeah, just go fight some goblins or something, or just, there is going to be a payout and everything, even if it's very small. Like, oh, you managed to save like a villager, and maybe the DM will work that villager in to like help the players out when they go to the next town or some shit. Like,
that example you just gave, Matt, that I don't think I would have been happy spending time on.
Which one? The mind flare?
Yeah, with the Oblex and the mind flares. Like that doesn't sound to me. That sounds like they're, like not that I'm saying you were wrong or shouldn't have done it, but like on my end, I would have felt like, I would have felt like I was sort of wasting my own time and or players' time, and I wouldn't have felt great about that. But so yeah, it sounds like you're not as concerned with that idea as long as it's still like interesting.
As long as it's interesting, it's fun. Like this is funny actually. I drew a picture of a mind flare and broke it up into like really, really small pieces, put them all into Roll20 as their own little puzzle token. And to get to the door where the mind flares, I had the players all control and move the puzzle pieces to make the face of the mind flare on Roll20.
Nice.
And they thought that was like the coolest fucking thing. And I'm like,
that's awesome.
That's a good one. It was a fucking pain. I will say it was a pain in the ass. It was a big fucking puzzle. And I'm like, oh, I have to make 26 tokens? Fuck.
That is, a little bit.
But it was worth it. It was fun. And they remembered. And yeah, and it was totally random thing. Yeah. Totally random side quests. But again, as long as it was fun for the players, fun for you, I think. And even if the payout is tiny, I think it's okay. I think the players will be fine.
Yeah, because the reason I bring all that up is because with what happened recently in my campaign, actually literally the last session we had,
Isaiah, what'd you do now?
Isaiah did nothing.
I was almost the sole cause of a player getting deleted because I made a really strong character.
I mean, Isaiah did make it. Yeah. So to give context, I guess I should explain. As I've mentioned before, three of the players in my group have 3 characters. And then Sam has 2 characters. And the tertiary characters, for a bunch of plot reasons that I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of, but the tertiary characters were basically sent on a kill mission to kill their primary characters. That was their their goal. So said tertiary characters, who are characters from another dimension, which I'm also not going to go down the rabbit hole of, but just know that they come from another dimension. So they came into the primary material plane, found the player's primary characters, and said, hey, we're here to beat your ass and kill you. Well, actually, technically, they only wanted to kill Sam's character. They would have let the other characters live if they succeeded. And so I took these, basically I took these characters' character sheets, converted them into NPC stat blocks, adjusted them very slightly, boom, bang, boom. I basically ran a PvP session, except I was controlling 3-player characters versus 4-player characters, which was, it was a bit much, I'm not gonna lie. in terms of balls to juggle, it's a little bit much running 3-player characters at the same time. Particularly in a pseudo PvP scenario, makes it another layer of like, oh Jesus. But all that being said, the said tertiary characters, basically, there's this interdimensional being that wants revenge on Sam's character, or raisins, and
his old patron is upset that he got betrayed.
Yeah, his old patron's basically upset that Sam's character broke up with him. So he sent his assassins to kill him, to kill Sam's character. And all that being said, basically, none of what's going on there is necessarily directly tied to sort of the main narrative arc of things, especially now that my players currently have a very specific goal, and this had nothing to do with that very specific goal. But if basically the outcome, regardless of what the outcome of this scenario is going to be, it's going to have interesting and, relevant effects on the world in general, which is why I ultimately decided it was worth going through with it, because it's going to have sort of ripples later down the road. So I was debating having it happen at all, or having it happen the way it did for a while, because I was feeling like it was just going to be sort of a dead end once it was done. It wasn't going to be relevant or come up again in any way. And that's sort of, to me, I was like, oh, it's kind of pointless if this doesn't even come up. But then I thought about it and I was like, oh, there are actually ways that this could potentially come up and matter. And I tied some other events into the scenario that I had not initially planned on tying in, but I was like, oh, well, this fits. So I sort of made it work more, and then felt more satisfied about the potential payoff. And it hasn't the whole situation has not concluded yet. So there's another step that could be also potentially interesting. Although it's entirely up to my players. So,
my character wants to
take his job.
Yeah, he wants to take Sam's patron's job.
Yeah.
Like when I first played him, he was kind of sassing the patron, and when the patron left, he was like, "Hey man, I'm always looking for upward movement," and just kind of walked away. And he said it very, very specifically in front of Sam's character to be like, "Want to help me out, fam?" Yeah. And now that he's like, "Hey, boss says I got to kill you," so I'm going to try, but
yeah. So once it's concluded, my players are going to sort of, they'll go back to the thing they were doing before, but it will be relevant in some capacity in some way down the road. So,
yeah, I think one of the best one of the most underrated payoffs is making friends. I know that sounds really dumb, but
the friends we made along the way.
It is though, right? Like,
no, it is. Yeah.
If you save random ass nobleman number 25, and then you make your way to the town that random ass nobleman number 25 is from, and the players get like, I don't know, let's just say they go into a dungeon and then 2 of them get horribly murdered, and then the 3rd one has to drag their asses back to town. And then random ass nobleman number 25 goes, oh shit, I did owe you that one. I do know a guy at a church who could probably bring them back, but like, that's all I got. Like, if I do this, we're square.
Are you referencing something specific, Isaiah?
What? No, I don't. No. What? No.
I think you are.
No, I don't know what you mean. It's not like we did die horribly in this.
I think you're referencing a specific event that actually happened.
You guys remember when we got fireballed at level 2? Good times.
Yeah.
No, we definitely did die under Baldur's Gate. What? Ow. Ow.
Yeah.
That didn't happen.
That dungeon, dude.
Yes.
That was wild.
But yeah, that is a. Wow, my brain just shut down on that one. That is like a relevant payout situation. Is the friends you made along the way?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go on.
I didn't really. Go ahead, you're fine.
I was going to say, well, because that's sort of my objective. It's one of the reasons why I throw so many NPCs at my players, because every NPC has a level of utility, and they sort of act as non-physical tools and items for the players to use, right? Like, they met this little kid. She's like 9 in one of the the fringe cities, in Reno, it's like the last city before the fucking desert in Nevada. And she's like, her nickname is the Sneak, right? Because she can go anywhere and get things because she's tiny. You know, she's good for thieving. So I put her in front of them very specifically to be like, this is a character. If you need a thing, you might be able to use her to help you if you like make friends with her, you know? And you know, it might not come off that way. It could just be, oh, here's a fun little random encounter. But basically every single NPC in one way or another has been like, they have a very specific use. If you can tap into this use and make good enough friends with them, they will be basically invaluable for some specific situations that I've thought of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it might not seem like it, but it's one of those things where it's the like down the road reward where they're like, oh, thank God we did that thing.
Yeah,
you know?
it's NPC as valuable gear item.
Yeah.
Now, you do that with every NPC?
Most of them. Like, you know, the NPCs could potentially teach, like, one of the shark siblings is a boxer, right? So if one of my players was like, oh, well, I want to get better at, like, fighting alone because they're a rogue, that boxer character could teach them his passive ability. So, like, which basically says if that NPC is up against a wall or any sort of surface, like if their back is facing it, you can't benefit from advantage against them. To be like they're Mike Tyson rope-a-doping. Sorry, Muhammad Ali rope-a-doping them. So if the player wanted to be like, oh, can I learn that thing you do? I'd be like, yeah, here you go. Here's some downtime. Like, once we get some downtime, here you go. You'll make some rolls, and if you do it, then you can get that cool ability. Paladin's dad has an ability that I gave him called Fire All, like the fucking Pirates of the Caribbean when they shoot all the broadsides. And he could, in theory, teach that to Paladin's character. And, you know, that character has more use than just the thing that he can, like, provide to the party. He's an important NPC. But, like, there's also this other thing, you know? Hell, they like, the first NPCs they met, I very specifically put them in, like, this little middle of nowhere settlement, because it's like, if the players ever, you know, get kicked out of their settlement, here's a place they could go to. It's off the grid. Nobody knows where it is. You know what I mean? It's like a good, like, safe house.
I'm sensing a slightly judging tone, Matt. What are you having a thought?
Kind of.
Go ahead. Let it out.
Well, not like super judgy. It's just like there's a part that feels like not every NPC the players have to get something out of them. You can just make, but like that's a whole nother talk. Like you can just make Joe Schmo, who's just a farmer, make the world like more realistic. If you make every NPC like you get something out of them, or someone they have a purpose specifically for the characters, for the campaign world, that feels too video gamey to me.
It might, and
that might just be me though. But
no, I mean that's fair. But I think I sort of see it as everybody you meet has some specialty or information that they have that you don't, and you can always learn from people. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So I kind of wanted to reward the players from trying to learn from the people around them, especially because the name of the game is Rebuild Society with a Community.
Mm-hmm.
And to be sure, like I said, most of them, not all of them. I've got 150 NPCs. Not all of them have
that's the
like
other
a thing. But like, if 90 of them have like, if you play your cards right and you're creative, they could help you in a few situations. Characters who are like merchants, right? If you make friends with a merchant, they can give you a discount. That's their little purpose. They don't have to have something super specific, but like some pretty common sense ones. If you make friends with a farmer, they can teach you how to farm. Stuff like that.
All I'm saying is at the end of your campaign, if your players don't 100% every character and they don't all show up, every single one of them to help out at the end, they didn't do it right. They failed.
if there's no Avengers Endgame scene.
Yeah, they gotta have the end game.
Gotta have the on your
Farmer
list.
Joe, you helped me plant my seeds. Now I'm gonna help you kill Thanos.
Yeah. It's funny. Of all my player, immediately my first thought, I'm like, who says Avengers Assemble? It's Brett. It's Brett's character, 100%. Mr. Soldier Man. Yeah, he 100% is gonna do the Avengers Assemble.
Nice. But it's that, and then also going back to, like, again, not trying to judge or be judgy, but it was that. And then also, every time, Josh, you mentioned that the players have 3 characters, I kind of do the Sokka slap forehead thing.
I mean, it's not like they're playing 3 characters at once. In fact, they're never playing the 3 characters at the same time because they couldn't. They're all, so they have their primary characters. Their secondary characters are ancestors of their primary characters, who I've only brought in a couple of times. And then the tertiary characters were just different people from a different dimension. And the reason I had that happen was to sort of fill out a piece of the world and like the setting that wouldn't really have gotten filled out in any other way. And because Sam's character got trapped in a different dimension, and I wasn't going to just do the solo Sam show. So they had tertiary characters.
So I've said it before. I do actually like playing multiple characters.
I think you could do some really fun narrative shit with it.
You can, yeah. We actually, LP did this thing in the Fire Emblem game where we did like a one shot basically. Brett wanted to do a one shot, and his character, who was also, the whole thing in Fire Emblem, all the main characters are royalty. So his character's home country in like their kingdom, and we played like the like the royal attendants. So like the general, the captain at arms, the court wizard, the court spy, stuff like that. And then our characters had to go do our mission, and we were supposed to die. We were supposed to like valiantly sacrifice ourselves, but because the our final stand took place in like holy ground, it was like a big temple to one of the 3 goddesses of the setting. And my character, who was a demon man, who is like a tiefling, but like actually is part straight up just like a devil, not like that. It's like my dad was as a Cambion. Specifically, it was an incubus, but yeah, the idea of him being like, hey, I know you don't like me because horns, but my friends are gonna die, and you know what? You can let me die. I really don't give a shit, but my friends are more important than that. So help. And then Brett was like, hey man, fucking roll for it, and I nat 20'd, and he was like, yeah, you get like teleported away into like a space between spaces, this like little demi-plane where the world will pass super fast without you knowing it really. And then our actual characters found them and set them free. and they helped us storm an enemy kingdom to like get to they helped us storm that kingdom because it had been sieged. They helped us like take back the castle. It was super cool. And we actually did play both characters at the same time for about 3 sessions, and it was rough. But it was a fun kind of rough. It's the, you know, you're figuring shit out for the first time, because it was my second game, and it's certainly my first time ever playing more than one character. So like it was a time, but I had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, the secondary character thing, or tertiary characters, I think about it, you know, from a narrative standpoint, you can think about it a lot. Minor spoilers for God of War Ragnarok, I guess. But you can think about it a lot like when you play Atreus in God of War, right? The parts of the story that you get and or participate in as Atreus, there isn't really any good reasonable way that Kratos would have interacted with those situations, right? Like the whole, how much spoilery do I want to get here?
Brett, you're gonna have to bleep this shit out.
No, I mean, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. I'm trying to like not spoil it too much. Atreus goes to a different place and meets a character, and it wouldn't make sense for Kratos to have gone to that different place, and Kratos would not probably have interacted with said character, is what I will say. So the GG, stop it. Guys, trying to eat my headphones. So the whole secondary character idea is I think of it like that, where, oh, I want to explore another part of the setting, but there's no reasonable way for me to do that with the current characters. So is there maybe some sort of secondary characters that it would make sense? So for my game specifically, there was a war that happened in the setting, but like that war happened like close to 1,000 years ago. So obviously the primary characters are not going to interact with that in any way, but I still want the players to learn about it. So I had them basically have dreams of their ancestors who participated in said war and play out parts of the war. So that then informs my players about that part of the world via these different characters. And then you can also tie it back to the main characters and add different, you know, some layers and stuff. That's how that's all it is for me. It's a tool. It's a narrative tool, and it's not too cumbersome because they're only playing the characters every once in a while, and they're not using them all the time or referencing them all the time. And it's not like those characters are as complicated as their main characters are, you know? And I gave them sort of little mini templates too of like kind of who the character is. I didn't totally decide for my players, but I gave them some like outline stuff. So it sounds wacky, but it's not as crazy as it sounds. And I mean, the tertiary characters might be done for good very soon, so they might be down to 2. So, you know, it's not yeah, don't assume it's crazy. It seems if it was my players are playing 3 characters all the time.
Yeah, that
would be goofy as hell. But that's not at all what's going on. In fact, my players complained about not getting to play their main characters after a certain point. So, you know,
this is a thing that happened. Yes.
Yeah. So I brought them back to their main characters and haven't gone away from in a while. But
I know, like, one of my players, he told me he's like in some games, like he likes the idea of like the guild hall thing, where like players and different characters, like players can play multiple characters, and whatever your other character is just sitting at the guild hall. But yeah, I don't know. Every time I hear about the interchanging character or something like that, it's always like I get the red flag in the back of my head.
Why do you see that as a red flag?
You're like, yours doesn't sound that bad. Like the way you said, like you said, it's like a narrative tool.
But why do you see that as a red flag?
Because then it's like, so it depends on the type of game. Like I try to have the characters, everyone gets their moment, and I try to incorporate, and this is a thing that we can do for for when it comes to main quest for a side quest thing, like integrating the players' backstories or their backgrounds into the campaign. I try and do that a lot. If I have a rotating cast, I can't really do that, and I feel like it's just like, all right, Gray Blob number 4, what the fuck is your deal?
Well, that's kind of why I'm talking primary characters and then secondary characters, because you just don't give as much attention to the secondary characters. They're a little more simplistic on purpose. Yeah. Now, if you're talking about a game where the cast is constantly rotating, then you just accept that the game isn't going to be about that as much and just focus on different stuff. You know, if you're doing sort of a West Marches game where you don't necessarily know every time who your party's going to be, then you're not going to delve as deep into like individual character backstories, because that's just kind of the game you're playing. Yeah. You just sort of take it as is. There's one game I know of called Band of Blades, which is a hack of Blades in the Dark, heavily inspired by the Black Company books. And the premise is that you're in the Band of Blades, and you're traveling across the country to kill like the undead queen or whatever. You're like fighting the like undead army. And because war is brutal and the undead are dangerous, your characters will often get really, really badly injured to the point where they can't fight. So you will play a different member of the company. So you'll have your main character who will be like the head captain of Squad 2. And then once the head captain goes down in a really rough fight, you might play the medic of Squad 2 for a couple of sessions, and then you'll go back to your main character. Or one of the characters dies and you just permanently play one of the like permanently play the medic or permanently play the scout guy of your squad. And that's like a mechanic in the game. You're intentionally supposed to be going through different characters. And the narrative is not focused on any one individual dude. The narrative is the story of the entire company, the entire team. And obviously you'll get little sprinklings every once in a while of, you'll learn things about individual characters every once in a while, but it's kind of that idea of in like a war movie where each individual character is not so important as it is their entire dynamic together. You'll learn little bits about each of them, but the thing that really matters is how they all work as a big group. And I have not played that game, but I really want to, because that premise is super cool, and I love the idea of having like 3 or 4 characters that I sort of move between.
Yeah, I remember you and I spoke about the game a little bit. I think it is interesting. I like the idea personally of having like a sort of like a soft loadout system, right? Where it's like, oh, well, we have to go in like, we got to go in loud today. So, get my demolitions guy, your ballistics expert, and then the tunnel rat to start making saps. We're just going to blow these fuckers to Kingdom Come.
You could also, I think Blades in the Dark even mentions this somewhere in there. You could do the same thing in Blades in the Dark, right? Once you have a sufficient group
play a second character. Yeah.
Not even play a second character. Once you have a sufficient group of dudes, make characters in your gang your second character, right? Like if you remember when we played, one of you guys could have been like, you could have been like, oh, Grant's out of commission, I'm gonna play Slice. And then you could play Slice as like a cutter.
God, just me thinking about how bad I wanted Grant to trauma out at least once, and it just never did. And I was just like, why? How come Sam gets to keep traumaing out? I want to have trauma too.
I think you didn't push your luck hard enough to get that trauma. You should have been more of an animal.
You forget, I use stress constantly.
Yeah,
I was constantly flashbacking, and
I think the problem is you didn't play. You got to play risky. You got to play a little like intentionally dangerous, so that you have to use resistance rolls a lot. That's like the big way to do it.
Yeah, I guess that was rough, right? Because it's sort of anathema to the way Grant was built to be like a long range. I don't particularly get in.
Yeah.
So yeah, within my power though, I tried real hard. Trauma out, and the game was just like, no.
Yeah,
I don't think
you did get unlucky or lucky, depending on how you
versus
look at it.
Sam, who rolled triple ones on the stealth skill that he was supposed to be super good at, and we just sat there like, you know that scene in Emperor's New Groove when Yzma and Krunk are like, wait, how did we get here first? And Krunk's like, yeah, I don't understand. By all mathematical accounts, it doesn't make any sense. It was that.
Yes, it was that.
Right.
I do want to reel the fishing line in way back though. So because Isaiah was like, oh, I always have, maybe not necessarily always, but often for a lot of my NPCs, they have some sort of value to the players as sort of a mechanical piece of equipment kind of thing. And I think the interesting thing there, and I don't know if this was a conscious thing you were mentioning or not, Isaiah, but by having all of the NPCs tie back in as some sort of mechanical benefit, if we think about it in kind of a video gamey sense, like, you rescue the blacksmith, you can upgrade your weapons. You rescue the medic, you can heal at your base, or if you think about it like Persona, you increase your social link with the moon persona, you get more XP. You increase your social link with the chick who plays shogi, you get different battle, you can get different battle tactics you can use in fights. That's a really easy way to make sure that any kind of branching side arcs always feed back into the main arc, no matter what.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because no matter how big or small the individual quest may seem, the reward is an NPC that has a very distinct value to the main focus of, or to the party in some fashion. And you could even, if you want, base your entire game around that premise. You could have your entire narrative be, the Dark King is going to come in a month. Once a month is up, the Dark King is here. Your objective as characters, get as many people as you possibly can to help you fight this dude before he shows up. Because if you don't, if you get no one, you're guaranteed going to lose,
Yeah.
And then your whole story, your whole main arc is going and doing different jobs for different people to get as much help as you possibly can. And that's like a whole campaign premise right there. And then the thing that's really fun about that is if you're the kind of person where you feel like, oh, I get bored focusing on the same story all the time, that gives you a really good excuse to come up with a whole bunch of side quest stories and just keep throwing them at your players and changing the vibe up all the time, because it always feeds back into that main thing. The Dark King's coming in a month.
Mm-hmm. That was the entire first major arc of my game. Like the
whole bandit attack, right?
Yeah, so because it was literally like, I said very early, like once it became official, I made it very clear very early on, we are outnumbered and they are way more organized than we are. We are scattered guilds that like try to mediate each other so we don't end up with, a post-apocalypse World War IV.
Yeah.
But they are a organized, collected band of psychopaths who do not break. They do not need morale boosts. They are just insane. So the player's going to like, oh, well, we need to go do this thing. So we're going to go to the crazy Tron cyberpunk city to see if we can get some help there. Oh, we're going to try to rescue this dude's husband. And we got to fix the cryo machine. So let's go get that guy from Nexus and we'll bring him in. And then you can go over to this place and go gambling for a little bit. And that'll help us find Paladin's dad. Like, that the arc was basically made of a million tiny side quests that eventually coalesced into the Avengers Endgame, like our side versus theirs.
Yeah.
That was 100% like that was the plan. And I unfortunately I think I did stretch things out a little too long because that arc lasted for like launch.
That is the potential main problem with that way.
Yeah, in my head, I was like, 15 sessions maximum. 80 sessions later. Oh, fuck.
Oops, looks like this is the whole campaign now.
Yeah, I mean, a part of me was like, if I end this now, some players would be missing their personal character stuff, but I'm kind of okay with that. But then I was like, nah, I want to do that other stuff too. Because there's,
I mean, you can always tie them in.
Yeah. That's basically what I did, right? It's like I was like, if I wanted to, I could be like, I'm good now. But then I was like, oh wait, there's other shit that I want to explore. I have some other interesting ideas I want to throw at the players. So that's one of the reasons why I was like, yes, we're gonna keep going 100%.
Yeah, and the thing that's really good about that method, the big pro is you can kind of keep the vibe ever changing. You know, one side quest is about delving into the undead crypt. Another side quest is about wandering into the forest to try and, what's the word? Coerce or, I can't, wow, my brain just shut down. Have peace talks with the Fae, but what was the word I was looking for there?
I don't know. I don't think coerce was the right one.
Coerce was not the word I wanted. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Converse?
Converse? I don't know. No, it wasn't converse either. I was looking for a more political based word. But anyway, and then, the next time your vibe could be, go into this neighboring town and deal with the like gang infestation problem. You can constantly keep the vibe going and changing, and by doing so, you as a GM, if you're the kind of GM that gets bored from the vibe staying a certain way for too long, you can keep it interesting by it's a new thing every week, which is sort of the benefit of that monster of the week style Scooby-Doo type nonsense. Scooby and the gang are in Australia. Now Scooby and the gang are in Siberia. Now Scooby and the gang are in Russia. Now they're in Africa. And you're like, what the fuck? How do they get around is my question, but it's okay. We don't need to worry about that. This is not relevant, but I always think about Scooby-Doo and the Yowie Yahoo.
Yes, that was one of the best movies.
That movie's so imprinted on my brain, the weird Australian vampire whose name I just didn't believe. I thought they just made up some nonsense, but the Yowie Yahoo is a thing.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember the Yowie Yahoo?
No, I remember I'm the
blue goblin looking thing that was
finding a picture. I'm finding a picture of the Yowie Yahoo.
The only Scooby-Doo movies I've seen was the original Zombie Island one.
No, animated movie.
Yeah, animated. That's what I'm saying. Zombie Island.
What?
Zombie Island was the animated one. And then recently, like last week, I saw Scoob. My Scooby-Doo knowledge is at like 5%.
Oh, Matt, you'll love this dude. Hold on. All right, this is a detraction, but this is important.
Yeah.
Matt's gonna.
Matt's
gonna love the energy. This is the Yowie Yahoo.
I'm one of the few people who was like, I know a little bit about Scooby-Doo, but I never got into it. I got into like the random, like I love Hanna-Barbera shit. Just Scooby-Doo wasn't the thing.
That hurts.
Although my buddies got me into the Hex Girls, and now I'm like,
this is the movie the Hex Girls come from.
Oh really?
No. They came from the witch one.
Did they? I don't think they came from this movie.
No. They showed up in that movie because they very specifically talk about like, oh, it's them again.
Oh, that's right.
But,
I know they show up in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scooby-Doo and the Legend of the Vampire.
Sure.
Good movie.
Love it. Yeah, the Yowie Yahoo. If anyone wants to look this up, it's spelled exactly how you would think it's spelled. YOWIEYAHOO. Yowie Yahoo. Anyway.
With the witch, because Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost. That's where the Hex Girls came from.
Oh, yeah.
It was a good movie.
Anyway.
Real quick. That guy fucking died at the end of that movie. Do y'all remember that? He literally got like pulled into a hell dimension. He just fucking died. That guy got fucked.
Villains die. I don't remember, but villains die horrible deaths in animated movies. It's fucking great.
Correct. For that time, what's his face got crushed by a giant wardrobe in Beauty of the Beast? That like random goo.
Yeah.
Yep. Remember, Scar got eaten by by hyenas while the hyenas burned to death.
I think my favorite one was Clayton getting hanged.
Oh my god, that was brutal. Fucked as a kid.
That scarred the shit out
that
of
shit
me.
was dark in Tarzan, yo. I was like, wow. And I kind of forgot about it, and then I saw the a clip of it again recently, and I was like, whoa.
Wait, what would have been worse? The fact that he hung himself by accident, or him splatting on the ground?
Hanging himself.
I think
hanging himself. You think it would have been worse than him just like collapsing and crushing all of his bones?
No, I think the hanging's worse, especially because they showed the shadow of it.
Well, that and like you could clearly see, right? If he like cut it and fell, you're like, oh shit, he fell. But the fact that like he was thrashing so badly that it wrapped around his neck, and even Tarzan was like, wait, no.
Yeah.
There he goes. You know, like
Yeah. Well, that was the point. Like, if they did that and didn't wrap around his neck, and then he just fell to his death, like that would have been just as bad because he still was Tarzan. Was like, no, wait, stop.
No,
The hanging
has a certain
worse.
brutality to it.
Yeah.
It's just like, oof.
yeah, you know what? I think what
Especially
like,
the way it's the way they did the shot too.
Yeah. I think it's also like in Disney, we've seen a few unaliving via gravity. We've never seen a dude be hanged. Like there's something that just breaks that mold. And when it happens, me as like a 6-year-old, which is like, oh.
Yeah. Like Gaston unalives via gravity.
Yeah.
Yep. The guy from Hunchback of Notre Dame, he falls into a pit of lava.
No, that dude.
Fuck, what was his name? The bishop or some shit.
Something Frollo, but all I can think of
is a banger.
All I can think of is that one video where the guy's like, "Sir, there's a gypsy woman outside with no shoes on." And he's just like,
"Bring me her free.
Bring me the free." Like, no, Frollo, no. Anyway, none of this
turns around. He's editing wiki feet pics.
Stop.
That's not my joke. I stole that 100%. But
God, are you guys excited for the Hercules movie where it's going to be based on TikTok memes? God, I fucking hate the modern era.
What did you just fucking say?
Anywho's and so Josh.
I don't want to go. No, I don't want to.
What did you just say?
No,
we're not going to zoom by like you didn't just say what you just said.
No, we're going to zoom by.
No, I'm 100% serious.
No,
the new Hercules live action movie is going to be based on TikTok musicals because according to one of the Disney executives, that's how kids are learning about musicals nowadays, through TikTok. So why not just do the whole Hercules movie like that?
Brings me to homicidal rage.
Yep. It's like they're gonna ruin that one, and also I heard they're gonna be doing Lilo and Stitch soon, and I'm like, oh boy, my favorites. Can't wait to see them ruin it. Gotta love it.
Big.
Can't even say they ruined Lion King. It's just like the same thing, but like fucking fast forward.
My brain just went.
Like, what if we just play this at like 2 times? The live action Lion King, sorry, the 3D animated one, because it's definitely not live action. But it's like, what if we redid this movie on like ×4 speed?
He took the red one.
Sorry, I have opinions.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We're already on a tangent. I saw in the news
I'm
a while
trying
back.
to get us off this tangent, but okay.
Yeah, just 2 seconds. I saw that
it's never
TikTok might be banned in the US at some point.
Yeah.
I genuinely was like, thank fuck. I hate TikTok so much. I'm kind of a hypocrite because I do get stuck on YouTube Shorts, but like,
there's a difference.
Yeah,
there's a difference.
There is, yes. There is a time difference.
I'm not going to get into this right now because it's dumb and irrelevant, but there's a difference. Anyway.
Yeah.
Are we good? Are we good now? Can we move on with our lives?
Maybe.
Hey.
That's good because I don't remember what the fuck we were talking about prior to this.
Can you be serious for a minute? 30 seconds is the best I got.
It's like, it's like, will you stop being stupid? It's like, I can keep going, but I'll let you continue.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Matt, do you remember what the hell we were talking about?
Main store or main branches.
I know that broadly. What we were talking about specifically before we went on this tirade.
Fuck if I know, dude.
Damn it.
God damn it.
I know like one of the things you were talking about the payoff, and then we went through all the NPC stuff, and that's like, I mean, I guess when it comes to side stuff, like me and Isaiah were mentioning like the arcs, like you have the main story arc, and then you have side arcs, and side arcs that's where like you have character arcs where it's like, hey guys, can we go find my lost dad now? We just beat like, I don't know, one of the 8 demon lords we got to beat. Can we like take a break for a minute so I can go find my long lost dad? Yeah, sure, why not? I can, stuff like that. Or
yeah, so like, I mean, let's get into that one because conflicted feelings about the what to call it, the character backstory specific branching arc, because it's one of those things. Players come up with a backstory, and most likely players want the backstory to come to fruition in some way or another. And the best way to do it often is tying your characters or your players' backstories into the main quest. Basically guarantees you're going to get something out of it. But sometimes it doesn't always work, and sometimes you end up in this situation where you kind of have to go and do like something that's, I don't want to call it a side thing, but something that's not as relevant in order to sort of satiate that character's desire for that thing. And I don't know, I'm really conflicted about the character backstory specific side quests, because on one hand, that is often where you get the most out of a player character in terms of who they are. But on the other hand, a lot of the time it can feel like a really awkward derailment. And I don't know how to reconcile it, because also, by the way, I just realized I sent those pictures in the wrong chat. Matt, there's the pictures I was trying to send.
They just look like vampires.
It's the big blue guy in the background.
Yeah, he just looks like a vampire.
Yeah, but he's a big, buff, cool vampire. He's the Yowie Yahoo, and you put respect on his name.
I don't know about that.
He
one.
looks like a giant blue goblin vampire.
He looks like
He looks like
what's
I'm
his
gonna
face
draw
from
Goliath from Gargoyles.
No, he's
Oh no, I goofed.
No, he's what's his face from Fantasia.
Oh, yeah,
Chernobog.
Chernobog.
Yeah, Chernobog. Anyway, he's blue Chernobog.
Alright. I guess.
Anyway, point being,
Chernobog is blue.
Chernobog's
I like-
black.
I like how
Sir,
I
I
like the
sell
80
a Funko Pop of Chernobog at my job. He's
blue
definitely
tinted.
fucking
Ooh,
blue.
that's sick.
He's blue tinted.
Is he like the big ones, or is he like a small one?
He's a normal size one.
He's blue
it's dumb,
tinted.
they're dumb.
Anyway, not relevant right now. So yeah, the player backstory side quest scenario.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like a good example.
Mhm.
All right. This is gonna sound like I'm shitting on. Okay, we had the critical role. We had the episode where we talked about Percy and Grog already. That was me and Isaiah. This is gonna sound like I'm shitting on Grog again. I don't mean to. It's just a good example. All right.
What has Travis Willingham done to you?
Nothing. I like Travis. The difference, right? But the difference is the way Percy's backstory went and the way Grog's backstory went. Percy's was integrated with the whole main plot, so it felt really cool and the payoff was really big and we got a lot out of the character. Grog's backstory with his uncle was pretty brief and felt like kind of a weird, like, non-canon anime filler episode. You know?
Really?
Yeah, I really didn't like that part of Critical Role. It felt very forgetful also. Like I don't really
why?
remember that much about it.
Oh, well, back Isaiah.
What'd you say, Isaiah?
Well, no, I was just so it's actually funny. I actually really liked the Kevdak bit because that actually felt more natural to me than the Percy thing. Because it's that thing, right, where Grog was pretty acutely aware of the Titanstone Knuckles, and it wasn't that thing where it's like, guys, we have to go do this thing, and they're like, oh god, we need, like, where are these crazy special magic items? And Grog is like, big, oh fuck, I know where those are. And like, where? It's like, oh, my fucking uncle has one of them. So it's that, right? It's like, it felt, one felt like, yes, this is like, this fits for a D&D story. The other one fit for more of like a, this
Ravenloft
seems
game?
no, just like being like, oh god. It's like the, I know how to get into the building. How? I gotta talk to my ex. You know what I mean? It's that.
Yeah.
I felt more relatable to me.
Wait,
And
you're
both
saying
were-
Grog felt more relatable?
Yes.
Well, both were, again, they're kind of two different stories. Like Grog's backstory, the very little backstory that I know of, is basically done. Like he completed it. Like it's done. He met Pike, all that shit happened, and now they're best buddies. And that was it. Percy's backstory, like, it was still like unfinished. Like his whole deal was like, I have to kill the people that killed my family. Grog's whole deal, like Grog never had a thing where he's like, you know what? If, you know, he's like, I have to go kill Kevdak. I have to go kill my uncle. Fuck that guy in particular. No, it didn't really like occur to Grog until it was like, oh, he's now an obstacle in my way. Neat. I can take him down. But it was never a thing where Grog was going to go after him. Percy, that was his whole character. That was his whole thing of, I have to get revenge. I have to go after the people that killed my family. I have to get my home back. So it's kind of hard to like judge the two when one is relatively very simple, but it was over. Technically, it was done.
Yeah,
Like,
but see, that's the thing. That's why Grog's felt less. The impact was less. I felt less invested. I felt less interested in it because it was just when it came up, Grog was kind of like, "Oh, I guess we should go do that." Yeah, as opposed to Percy being kind of driven. And the way
we
that
didn't get like a whole like 20 episode saga / animated series.
Well, and also the way that Grog's started and ended felt kind of abrupt. Just sort of happened. I was like, okay.
I think I should specify. I like Percy's arc more. I think the Briarwood arc is probably still my favorite batch of episodes in CR. But Grog's just felt relatable, right? It was quick, dirty, and it did feel a little unsatisfying, right? Like they killed Kevdak and then they just fucked off and did the next thing.
Yeah.
But there was a certain level of like unapologetic realism in that, right? Like, if you're doing the X thing, it's like, oh god, we got to talk to my ex. You show up, you talk to them, you get the information you need. It's really awkward, and then you leave feeling kind of unsatisfied and more emotionally exhausted than when you got there. There's like a level of like, oh, that's a mood, bud. You know what I mean?
And the whole Kevdak thing was technically that was part of a bigger quest line. Like the main quest was, all right, we have to kill the dragon. How do we kill the dragon? Oh, we got to find the items. Okay, how do we find the items? Oh, we got to go to this town where one of the guys who happens to be your uncle has one of the items.
Right.
And it's like, oh, well, okay. So it's just working backwards from like the objective.
Yeah, and that's true. I did forget that it did have some relevance to the main plot via the getting the knuckles.
Yeah. And then immediately the next episode, they made that big trap in the town to fight the black dragon.
Yeah. But it just, in terms of, like, I get what you're saying, Isaiah, in that one feels a little, like, more believable in a weird way. But yeah, in terms of, for my game I'm running, if I were running the game, I would feel not great about the Grog scenario and good about the Percy scenario. And because of the conflicting feelings on those two things, I am conflicted about just that whole like subset of subset of narrative in your games, in games where, oh, we have to go do my character's backstory now, or or more specifically, I as a GM, when I get into that mental space of like, oh, I have to pay attention to this character's backstory now, even though I wasn't really thinking about it. I didn't really have a good plan, but it's been a while, so I feel like I should. Okay, how do I integrate this? Can I make this feel satisfying, or is it just going to feel like a shitty side quest that nobody cares about? And when I say side quest, I do mean it in like a semi-demeaning way in this time, right? Because if you don't make it good, then it feels like just a side quest. Yeah, I have a hard time with those. And I'm trying to think if I've even had a successful example.
I mean, I can throw out a couple random examples. Like in the last campaign, I had a character who their whole deal was like, hey, I come from like a somewhat assassin's guild, and we live on this like winter kind of island. So the players went there, and they went to the island. It was like a 3-session thing. In this camp, the Strixhaven campaign, I have a player who's like, hey, can my ancestor be a general, and I have to go find his magic item that is lost, and it can be somewhere in the Mad Mage dungeon. Like, no problem. Like, you can integrate magic items and time to characters. You can integrate like locations, NPCs. You can make, what if one of the bad guys happens to be like, oh, connected to the character somehow? You're like, oh, you are my father, shit like that.
All right. But wait, was that? Are you saying that was an example you ran?
The things I mentioned, yeah.
I mean, that was all very brief, so I don't. Okay. I was expecting you to go a little more detail there, but all right. I guess.
I mean, well, I'm just trying to just list off a couple of things because like it all boils down to like, yeah, make supporting characters that you can tie into, you know, your players. You tie magic items, you know, they either grow in power with the characters. Like Joe, his whole deal is he has a magic item that's going to level up with him, and it's tied to his backstory. Like,
Is that the one I named? Is that the weapon I named?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh.
No, that's not the one. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. I don't want to say it on
No.
here,
Yeah, don't say it. But yeah,
No, Joe's he's doing Wukong. He's doing the Wukong. So he's got the monkey staff.
That's right.
So he's got the monkey staff, and that's going to evolve with him as he, you know, levels up in the game and does story stuff. And yeah, like, you know, I think magic items like tying them to players are, you know, either it's like, oh, I have to locate this lost relic, or oh, this magic item powers up with me. It's like, you know, the items grow with the characters in game. That's a pretty good example.
Feels kind of meh.
Why?
I just in terms of giving attention to a character's backstory, that feels kind of
But it works.
Yeah, but I want it to be a little more impactful. I want it.
That's
why I like
it. It's tied to the character's growth. How is that not more impactful than that?
Because just like, oh, here's this magic weapon you found that also grows with you is like not narratively.
Well,
that's very whatever.
Well,
what?
No, that is opposite. That is super narrative. What
Yeah,
the fuck?
I think it's the way it's implemented, really, because I had LP did the same thing with me with Cyrus and his crazy magic greatsword that had his dad in it. Like, it was a cool item that leveled up with him, but it became like incredibly plot relevant when the character was going to take lethal damage, and it like blocked the attack.
It's
And
not.
that was like a really good, like a very memorable moment that even today I'm like, oh, that was fucking awesome.
But it's not a quest or an arc specifically focusing on your character. Like it's not a Percy scenario, which is really what I'm talking about.
I mean, well, if you have it, if it's like the lost relic, or let's say you have like a broken sword handle and I have to rebuild it, you know, this was my, you know, great ancestor's sword or whatever, and you go on the main quest and you just happen to find pieces here and there. That's a quest. That is a side character arc quest that is happening alongside the main quest.
Yeah. But this is what I mean about me feeling conflicted, because if I were a player and I had some like weapon tied to my backstory in whatever sense, and then, you know, part of the main story, we acquire the piece to the weapon. It's like, cool, now the weapon that's like related to my backstory is relevant now because I can use it or whatever. I would feel a little disappointed though, because I want my backstory to be like, this is what I mean about being conflicted, because as a player, I kind of want my backstory to become a central, like I want to be the main character for a little bit. I want to be the Percy for a period of time. And then once that's over, I'm good. But then as I'm thinking about it on the GM side of things, if you want to make your character the main character for a while, there's a good chance you have to kind of ignore or skirt around or change what you were doing originally.
Yeah.
Because it's impossible. Well, not impossible. It's very difficult to integrate every character's backstory into the main story.
Yeah, no, not everything. You start out small and then like taking elements.
Well, that's what I mean. Even if you're just just in general, taking 4 disparate characters and trying to get all of them worked in is really, really hard. So the next best option is, okay, well, we'll focus on them one at a time at different parts. But then again, you get into the situation as a GM where you're like, but I don't care as much about that. I care more about my main thing that I'm trying to have the players go through.
And then this is where I come in and say, this isn't a novel. This is a D&D adventure.
I'm not talking about. All right, that was rude.
No, this isn't me poking at you in general. This is just a generalized, like, because there are so many D&D subreddit like green text stories about this shit, and it's like DMs who don't integrate player backstory at all, in their campaigns, and they're just running through the DM's own story. And it's like, you got to do a little bit, even if it's like small nuggets, an NPC, or some lore they hear. Like if a character is playing like a Dragonborn, and Dragonborn are special in your setting for some reason, and they find out something that are like, oh, turns out Dragonborn are connected to it's Bahamut. I always fuck them up with the Bahamut and Baphomet. And it's like, oh, Bahamut is like important to the world. And they learn like a little bit about
he did it again.
I did it again? Fuck.
Bahamut.
Yeah, Bahamut. Yeah, that's the good one.
Bahamuto.
Yeah. Like,
wait, Baphomet and Bahamut.
Baphomet's the evil one.
They're not related.
No, I know, but I always fuck up the names because they sound similar.
Interesting. I've never had that, but that's interesting. Okay.
No? Oh.
No.
Okay.
But you also got to remember, me and Josh come from Final Fantasy, so.
Oh, true.
Big Daddy Bahamut it's hard to fuck that one up.
Baphomet's a little bitch.
But yeah, no, a little bit. Like if you don't do it at all, like
I'm not. Okay,
I can
hold
see
on. No. I gotta stop you here. I'm not talking about driving my players down the single railroad and only doing what I want. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm feeling a little accused here.
Well, no, I'm not. No, because if I was gonna say that, I would have. But I'm not saying that. I'm not pointing at you and being like, you're railroading the players down your triple character other dimension. No, I'm not saying that.
The point I'm getting at is in a linear game, which I guess I should have said earlier on, but obviously all of this entire thing is predicated on the assumption you're running a linear game. Because if you're running a more sandboxy game, then a lot of this is sort of takes care of itself by nature of just how a more sandboxy game goes. But when you're running a linear game, you have kind of a point A to point B that you want your players to eventually get to. And if you're running a linear game, presumably they want you to lead them down that path, because often players want you to tell them what to do. As much as people love to say that they don't, a lot of times players actually do want you to tell them what to do, because otherwise they just faff about doing nothing.
Do they say though they'll sit in the sandbox while waiting for the railroad? Like, yeah,
And so what I'm saying is I have the linear thing that I'm sort of presenting to the play. I have the main arc that I'm presenting to the players. And then they want to have their backstory arcs. But I'm always conflicted on whether I really want to give that a lot of time or not, or if it's even really worth going down, or, and also some players care more than others. Like some players will make a backstory and be like, I don't really want or care if this does or does not come up. I'm not like, point is I don't have a firm answer, and I've never done it successfully. I don't think that I can remember. I've never had a Percy situation that I can think of.
I mean, I think the whole thing with Ro getting his lightsaber worked really well. I liked that a lot. It wasn't particularly long, but I thought that was awesome.
It was all right.
I mean, to you, I thought I was completely satisfied personally as a player.
That one was a little phoned in.
Maybe you saw it that way. I thought it was cool.
Well, because I didn't plan that one ahead of time very well. I kind of planted the seed on the fly, and if I had planned it ahead of time better, it would have worked out smoother. But whatever. It happened eventually.
I don't know. I find that a certain level of like ad hoc will figure it out as we go in. I don't know. I expect it. I feel like if there are no wrenches in the plan for the backstory stuff, it just sort of feels like, yeah, it just feels kind of like filler. You know what I mean? Like you could, if the players can be like, okay, and then we're gonna hit this. A certain level of randomness for things just going awry, I think is good, and it sort of enhances the situation for me at least.
And players love faffing about. Like one,
they do love faffing about.
They love that. As one of my players recently told me, he's just like, Matt, I'm like, man, the 3.5 year game took a long time. He's like, yeah, we were faffing about a lot though. It was fun. I'm like, yeah.
As far as the like, is it worth it goes, I don't think I'm a very good case study for this, because I'm sort of the, if my players are having fun, I have fun by proxy, because I like my players having a good time, even if their characters are having an awful time. As long as they're enjoying the situation as a whole, I find it's easier for me to play into it and improv and bounce off ideas if I feel the same level of enthusiasm. There's times when I'm doing my own plot stuff where I feel like, the players feel like, okay, once we finish this plot stuff, my character's backstory stuff will kick in, and then I can do that, and then that'll, I sometimes I feel almost like at a loss, because I'm like, well, I know that they do seem excited to do the stuff they're doing, but there's like a spark that's missing,
Yeah, I think the primary problem here is that the answer is just on a case-by-case basis, which is why it annoys me, because I don't have a good answer that I can apply on a broader scale. So yeah, you always run into little snafus.
Yeah, you do. But I think if it was a clear cut every time, I feel like it would be less fulfilling, right? Like one of the joys of running a game is sort of figuring out what your players find important, what they enjoy more than other things,
Well, you guys remember the great joke story?
Yeah,
that initially started off as being, all right, we're going to do the Shadow Monk's backstory stuff now. And then it just got so derailed and we never went back. Shit happens.
Yeah, I don't mean I want to have an answer that I can apply to just constantly apply, but I like to have broad rule sets that I can use to a lot of things. And this is not something that I have found a broad rule set that will work for me. At least not yet. I may find one in the future. Never know. And I think it also just annoys me because I fucked it up and or not done it multiple times. It was quite the sticking point more than anything. Which is kind of why I was thinking about it in what happened in our most recent session. Is because it's been a sticking point for me for so long. So then I thought about, and I'm still even now going back and forth on if I handled it in the correct way or not.
Do you have any example of beside Rose thing of like backstory stuff that you feel like you maybe could have pushed more, or something that you feel maybe bad for not pursuing?
Yeah, the entirety of our current campaign.
The whole thing?
The whole thing?
Well, what I mean is like the whole thing's gone on and I haven't really utilized backstory of any of your characters.
You can always start now.
I mean, I can, but it's a little late.
Oh, no, it's never too late.
No, it's a little late, Matt, because I'm not running this game much longer.
Oh.
Because I don't have the energy to. So like I'm trying to, I am on the course of wrapping things up.
I mean, you could always hammer it in, like like for like a real quick job. It's
you can. That just feels.
Also, actually, this is the one thing I forgot to mention in the beginning that I want to mention. The biggest thing when it comes to these type of deal, like integrating like player backstories into the story, the story arcs, whatever. You work with the player, or the player works with you. Like talk to the player, get ideas from the player. They'll give you what like cool ideas. They'll give you what they want, what you shouldn't probably do. Like vet from them. They're not only the players, they are probably the best pool of ideas you can grab besides your own imagination.
That applies well early on. It's a little tricky for me to do that now because the funnel of events is shrinking down quite drastically. Yeah. And it's getting to that point. Because it's like that thing where once the tension ranks... what was I trying to say there? Once the tension ratchets it up to a certain point, it's like that open world game thing where, we're on the final quest. We're going to go kill the bad guy, step through the portal, and end the game. And then you as the player go, hold on, I'm going to go do a bunch of side quests first. I know the world's going to end in 5 minutes, but I really want to do these side quests in these 5 minutes, so I'm just going to go do those real quick.
Yeah, you can do that. A lot of anime do that shit too, where it's like, all right, guys, we're about to go fight the Schmargenrog, the Shadow Dragon of Death. But first, let me go tell that girl I've been hitting on the entire show about my actual feelings and give her this flower. Like you could do that for like the second to last thing before the big. Yeah,
that's kind of that's kind of a small example though. Like trying to be like, hey, let's explore my entire backstory now in the last 2 sessions.
Well, you could also do it epilogue style, right? Like once the main plot ends, the players can like, now that we don't have the end of the world over our heads, we can have the time to like explore.
Yeah, you can do things epilogue. That's true.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But I think especially in your situation where you feel like you're running up against a clock, epilogues are the way to go because you've literally thrown off all restrictions. This is just sort of the victory lap, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'll give you an example. Like I wish one of my players in the 3-year game, in his backstory, he wrote that his parents were killed by a kraken. And for the longest time, I've had I had the map prepared, the encounter prepared, everything of the players going and fighting the Kraken, and then it never fucking happened throughout the entire campaign. And that is one of the biggest big regrets that I'm like, fuck, because it was never a good time, it was never a right moment. During downtime stuff, players had other shit to do, and eventually it just never came up, and it was always like a big thing that I regret never doing. And to make up for it, I ended up just having the player meet their grandparent and be like, your parents were killed, and like at least have some sort of like family connected thing. But they never got over like the Kraken, and I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, that feels like, a little. Yeah, well, the thing too is like if I was a player and you were like, you just talk to your grandpa real quick, I would feel a little like, I almost wish from my perspective, I would be like, I almost wish I didn't do anything because it feels, I don't know, like doing something really minute. My brain's almost like, just don't do anything at that point. But that's me. I don't probably other people wouldn't necessarily agree with that. And yeah, those are all options. I'm just saying in response to Isaiah's question, like, yeah, I think the current campaign, I could have utilized that way more and just sort of didn't because I just had ideas rolling in as things went on, and now it's kind of at the point where I'm like, well, might as well round it up. So, like I said, I have no good examples that I can think of. Yeah, no.
Oh, what happened with the sword thing? Like the lightsaber, like that one. I remember I think you guys have mentioned that on the podcast.
The campaign ended.
Well, no, like how Isaiah's character got the lightsaber.
Oh, he went to the planet Ilum and found the other half of a crystal to sort of complete his sword. And Ilum is the planet that in episode 7, the First Order turned into the
Starkiller base.
Starkiller base, yeah.
Oh shit.
Ilum is that planet, so they went there to complete the saber because that's Ilum is the planet in old Star Wars. Actually, I think this is still the case. In like Star Wars lore, Ilum is the planet where all the lightsaber crystals come from, or the majority of them come from.
Oh.
So I had him go back there, found a temple, get the crystal, blah, 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 as well as discover, basically the players ran into the First Order and their beginning stages of building Starkiller Base. Because the campaign was taking place between 6 and 7.
Hey.
The problem was that the way the way I pushed them towards that objective felt kind of shoehorned in. Like Isaiah's character found the a half of the crystal and then used that as sort of a navigation tool. He found it in kind of a random place though, and used that as a navigation tool to find the other half. Meh. So it just felt a little And if I had thought about it more, like after we stopped playing, I had thought, like I had more ideas afterward that I was like, oh, this would have been a better way to do it. That would have been a better way to do it. That would have been like I had a whole bunch of ideas of like better ways to implement that I don't know why at the moment just nothing came to me, and I just kind of threw it in there really quick just because I didn't want to ignore it. So it just ended up being kind of like, well, it's something.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like what I'm hearing is it seems like you when you're building campaigns, you have all of these ideas for like really cool shit that the campaign will hold as far as the main story goes, but you almost like you build everything and then you turn back around and there's all this player shit and you go, oh shit, where do I put this?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. It's kind of where it seems like you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I build a Lego castle and then I have extra pieces and don't know what to do with them.
Yeah, I mean, the only advice I can give for that is make sure that you're staring at those pieces while you're building the castle, like,
or leave gaps in the castle.
So the problem with looking at the pieces while I'm doing it is that a lot of the time I build a lot of the ideas up preemptively before the campaign starts because I like to have a lot of big ideas solidified before I start a campaign. So I don't have those pieces at all when I'm thinking about it. And then by the time I get rolling, now I have the pieces and I have to try and shove them into what I've already thought of. So I do, the answer is what Matt said, is I have to try and kind of keep gaps and or be a little more open-ended. Easier said than done. That's all I got on that one.
It's hard. It can be difficult.
Because I always like, I don't know how everyone else does this, but when I'm planning, planning's a very strong word. When I'm thinking about in the shower a campaign I want to do,
yeah,
right? Like, yeah, planning is a strong word. When I'm like thinking about ideas for the next campaign I'm going to do, a lot of how I solidify my ideas in my mind is sort of like a director planning out really cool scenes they want to do. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you ever seen, when you watch a movie and you get to a certain scene and you can tell, you're like, oh, this entire movie was made for this scene. Right? Like, you could tell the director had the idea for this one scene, and then he made the rest of a movie around it. You know what I mean? You ever had that sensation?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, Avengers Endgame, I think, is a pretty good example, right? Endgame is all about serving that final fight. Right? Like, that whole movie is for that. And Infinity War, that whole movie is for the snap scene. Like, it all serves that one purpose. So it's like, that's kind of how I think about campaigns a lot of the time. I will solidify these scenes. And I'll be like, the point is to get to these right here, and they're going to be super sick when I get to them. But then I do that a bunch of times, and then there's not necessarily the space in between, and then I go, oh, I have run out of room. Or the other thing I do is I'll leave space in between, and then I'll have my scenes that I'll have my big parts that I know I want to get to, and then I get to them, and then I have the space in between, and I go, oh no, I don't know what to do now. I have no ideas. There's a blank emptiness. Like, the train tracks just stop, and I'm like, I'm gonna put tracks there eventually. I don't know what they're gonna be though.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't, because I do something similar when I'm planning ahead for arcs and stuff. I'll have these like scenes in my head, but it's a very loose, like, I want them, it's the Luke and Vader fighting over the reactor core kind of shit, where it's like, okay, I want the players fighting in this area, and I want the bad guy to do a monologue, but I will very specifically leave the minutia out because I don't like
do that.
maybe try. I mean, it's
because the one thing it's like, you know, every DM plan, you know, as soon as they hit the players, like it goes to chaos.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. If you plan for, you know, Mook, my maker, to fight Vader, and then oh no, it turns out it's his dad, and then the rest of the party show up when they weren't supposed to in the fight. Your whole Mook, I am your father moment is thrown out the window.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess so. I don't tend to run into that problem as much for whatever reason. I don't know. Because, like, a good example from literally the current campaign, the whole part of you guys getting a job from a weird dude, a mysterious dude turns out to be an angel leads you to talk to Zeus, like that whole quest line that just recently happened, I had that planned before the campaign started. Like, I knew that was going to be a big major point somewhere along the road. Like, I had that super set in my brain. And I mean, it when I got to it, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, did exactly what I wanted, and like more or less it worked out the way I wanted. So, you know, good. But yeah, it was very like that whole quest line was like very set in stone in my brain. And then, but yeah, the in between bits often, yeah, it's like either I have it set in stone to the point where then I don't give myself wiggle room, or I leave weird gaps, and then the gaps are often kind of awkward.
Honestly, that would stress me out so much, to being like, this has to be this. Like I don't think I set anything in stone up until it happens. The idea of being like, I have to make sure that these pieces align just right to make this outcome happen. That'd keep me up at night. I couldn't do that.
Well, the thing about the pieces, controlling how the pieces align, is you often get cool outcomes. You know?
You do, if you can sort of, you can keep the plan together enough, right? Because Matt's right. No GM plan ever survives first contact with the players. So the idea that it's like, okay, they've completely shattered every idea I had for this. Is this now a lost cause, and I can just figure it out as we go, or it's like, or I have to sort of have these broken puzzle pieces in my hands and try to like put them back together as fast as possible, so the players will like re-engage with it and be like, oh, okay, maybe we won't break it this time, you know?
I guess I think my method's pretty simple on that. Is just if the players shatter everything leading up to it, then I just find a new way to reconstruct the puzzle pieces so they ended up where I wanted anyway. You know, if it's something I'm really attached to, I'll like make it work.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something that you're like, I need, like the really early on, I had this idea of the players like doing the spooky dungeon with the like weird Leshen monster. And I knew I needed them to be in that building tripping balls on like mushroom spores and getting spooked to shit and back. But I didn't like, I there were some ideas on how I want them to go there, like that Tony Stark character, either them like finding him because, you know, his company is where Paladin got the engine from, like he stole it, or didn't really steal it, it was abandoned, so he just took it. Or like the Gator Man Gariel would be like, hey, I own this building because I also like employ Moreau. Like there was a few avenues to how I could get them there, so I didn't feel like I'd have to worry about making sure that they followed the breadcrumbs exactly. I was pretty confident that like no matter what, they'd end up here somehow, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like you're just doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I do it from time to time. I just like, it's very rare though where I'm like, I need it to be this way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even necessarily do it that often. Just often enough that I've gotten good at it, I guess. Oh, I don't know. But as we've established, to the detriment of like player backstories. So, you know, do with that what you will, I guess. So if you're a player in my game, don't give me a big backstory. Fuck off. I'm not gonna look at it. It's not true.
I'm just gonna give you more backstory.
I'm joking. I didn't do that. To be fair, in my defense with my most recent game, none of my players gave me any kind of real heavy backstories. So, you know.
Yeah, that's right, players. It's your fault.
God, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying. You know,
I think
wasn't
that was
given,
intentional.
What?
It was for me. That was intentional. I was like, there's no point in me writing a super complex one.
Yeah, but I mean,
So
whether it was intentional or not, yeah, I'm just saying it was a thing that occurred. Like nobody gave me any sort of deep, intricate, crazy backstory or anything. You know, it was all pretty general shit. You know, whatever. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just stating it happened. So ergo, my problem of thinking about how to dealing with integrating backstory, like, or side quests for character backstories is made more difficult because I was not given a lot to work with also. You know?
What is it more difficult? Because I sort of feel like for me
well, because I don't have any real threads to pull on. Like the only character who I feel like I had any real threads to sort of tug on was your character, Isaiah. Like was for Django. Oh.
Sort of, yeah, I guess, but that's sort of the benefit of telling the GM like you got this, right? Because you can sort of tailor it to what you want. Me, Django being like an amnesiac, and I'm sort of speaking this because I also have experience having a player who's an amnesiac. You don't have to worry about being like, well, what if they don't, you know, what if this character doesn't have a dad? Well, it doesn't. They do now. If your character doesn't remember not having a dad, then you could have a dad. That's just how it is, you know.
That's not what was going on though. Like, all the characters had established stuff. It's just you guys as players didn't tell me a whole lot. You know, like a little bit. You know, like we know a little bit. Like Xavier has some parents that he doesn't get along with. Kai used to live out in the Grove. He left because he wasn't really jiving with how he lived there. But like no strong statements in anyone's backstory that I could really tug on as like a thread for like a big quest or an arc.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying though, right? Is because Django's is sort of up in the air, it doesn't have to conflict with any of your plans, right? Like
yeah, I know. Well,
sort of.
That's kind of why I said Django. I that's what I'm saying. Django, I did have something to tug on. You know, like I did have stuff to use, and I did. I feel like I did. I mean, not a crazy amount, but it, you know, there was shit there. And as far as like leaving it totally open so I can do whatever I want as a GM, sometimes. That's where you're getting that funny thing where sometimes a player will like not give you a lot of backstory and they'll just be like, yeah, do what you want with it. And you go, okay. But sometimes a player doesn't give you a lot of backstory and then you do what you want with it. And then they go, oh, I don't like that. And you go, well, I don't know what to do now. I have made some pretty strong statements.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see
happen.
that. I can see
Totally
that happening.
happens.
I think it's sort of the only thing I could say is just keep in touch with that player and be like, hey, what are you thinking about this? Is there any ideas you have? Any critiques? Any?
Are you trying to give me a part-time job over here?
Yes, it's called being a GM. Being GM is sort of a part-time job. There's a lot of thinking you got to do while you're doing your actual job.
Yeah, but I can do
I like
that
to think of it as being a manager of sorts. You have to
a manager.
You know,
Yeah.
You have to like, you know, schedule, you know, deal with scheduling, make sure everyone shows up on time, making sure everyone knows how to do their job and or their characters, quote unquote.
Yeah, I mean, I have. Oh no, yawning. I have on several occasions been like texted Moon or Paladin and been like, "What do you think? What do you think would happen this session?" You know.
You can just say my players. Nobody knows anyone's use.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Say players. It's okay. Or just say a player.
Well, you know,
Anyway.
the players
This
themselves
fucking
watch
guy.
this, so like,
Fair enough. I mean,
So yeah,
Calling you out, players.
Yeah,
Jesus.
I will text them and be like, "What do you think about it? Did you have any like problems with that? Is there anything you want to add now that like you might have the juices flowing? You might like think of something that I didn't bring up or you hadn't thought about previously."
I mean, in my specific example, I was assuming the player was coming at you. But yeah, fair enough.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like you sort of you keep in touch with them so they don't come at you and be like, "I don't like what's going on," you know?
Yeah.
Or hell, I'll like if something particularly like harrowing happens, right? Like a character losing a limb
Heroin
or
where?
finding,
It was an attempt at a joke. It didn't.
no, I just didn't even hear it.
I know. It didn't work.
Like for one of my players, the like the bird person, she's like her like Native American tribe. She found out that her parents were dead the whole time. Like they died pretty shortly after she had been kicked out. So when she found out, I was like, are you cool with that? Like, you know, it's not, if you're not, we can retcon this after the fact, you know.
Oh, wait. That was something. So did she say that she had parents and then you killed them, or?
Yeah, so she was like, I haven't seen my parents in a while. I don't like them. They they didn't back me up. It's been 10 years since I've been home. So when
That's a pretty good drama bomb.
Yeah, when she got back and her and her brother had like, they hadn't reconciled, but they were talking. She was like, "So how is mom and dad?" And like, he was kind of like, "Well, they're not really like anything right now." You know, like
How they're doing? Well, they're not doing anything.
yeah, it was really cool scene, right? Because they when he brought her back to like their old home, there was like a shrine at the back with their feathers, because you know the whole thing is like they're like weird phoenix people. So their feathers they don't ever stop giving out light heat. Sometimes they'll sort of do that thing that fire does, where you can see like little glowing veins on like a burning log. So they just sort of exist as these ever-present little lights, and they're big feathers because you know they're you know a few feet long, so they almost look like incense. And she got to like rebond with her brother over the like the mourning of their parents, and they said some prayers and sang old songs their father would sing to them. So it was like a cool like moment that helped bridge this gap between two characters, and it only cost the lives of two other characters.
All it
That's fine.
cost
They were
was
NPCs.
murder.
They don't count.
Yeah.
Incredibly violent.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how one of my characters, her surrogate dad went missing and is presumed dead, and they went somewhere they went to like the ship city and they found his mask, and they're like, "Where did you get that?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, one of our boys picked that up." Like we kind of this group was just kind of giving away all this shit that they didn't want anymore, and you know all the yokels up on the ship city will buy anything that's like exotic or vintage. So I found that cool mask, and then they just sat there like, oh no. Yeah, I'm on that one, being like, hey, don't know if he's alive.
All right. Well, I'll think about it and then probably ignore everything y'all said. But you know, kid. All right. We'll wrap that up after Isaiah's harrowing tales of how he murdered a player's parents, actual parents. Isaiah's a killer.
I am a killer, but I haven't killed any parents.
Anyway,
Yet.
if you've liked what you heard, hit the follow and or subscribe button on your podcast platform of choice. If there is a rating, please give a rating. A good one. A good one would be nice. A bad one would be not nice. Also, if you'd like to keep up to date, follow us on the Twitters, the Angry Bluebird app, because at the moment it still exists, despite Elon Musk's greatest efforts. And I feel like I'm forgetting a thing, but yeah, that's fine. Man, I really feel like I meant to say something else.
Not
Well, let's keep it-
what I learned today here.
I mean, yeah, I guess if you guys want.
No, it's fine. Well,
Do you have
you're
a thing?
right.
Go ahead.
No, I already said everything I wanted to say.
Do you have a
Because
final
we
thought,
were like,
Matt?
I'm forgetting something, and I'm like, oh.
Do you have a final thought, Matt?
Ask
Yeah, go
for
for it.
consent, traumatize your players.
Yeah,
I was
so
going to
it's good.
say eat your
That's good.
broccoli.
eat broccoli. Yeah, broccoli's good.
I don't know. I like ask for consent, traumatize your players.
Okay. Matt, can you top that?
I don't think I can top that. No,
Disappointed.
but work with your players to integrate their backstories into the campaign. There you go.
Or do what I do. Ignore your players.
Or don't. Yeah, or just
Just
don't.
ignore your players.
Fuck
They don't
them.
get opinions.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.